It's a big day on the podcast. The annual NFL quarterback tiers piece from Mike Sando and The Athletic is out. We're going to run through all the different quarterbacks, see what the NFL coaching and executive world are saying about all of your favorite or least favorite QBs. College football has officially already started, but the big weekend is this weekend. I'm going to run through just a bunch of storylines that I like and then try to pick the 12 teams for the playoff. And we've got a recap of heading to British Columbia, a little Victoria, a little Whistler, a little Squamish, a little Pemberton. We've got it for you. And a longer life advice because we were just happy to see each other. Enjoy. Let's talk some college football. I'm excited. End of August, first full weekend ahead. I'm going to do some predictions, but I'll just be completely honest with you. College football is entirely different than looking at the NFL or NBA for obvious reasons. NBA, you kind of know the vibe of a team. Do they have one of the top 5 players? Do they have any of the top 10 players? You can write off the teams that don't have it. NFL quarterbacks, some of the carryover, despite the ups and downs. But there's so much turnover now in college football, really even more so now than ever before. We can look at talent. We can look at recruiting rankings. We can look at the transfer stuff, the coaches we like, we don't like. But for the most part, when you read a ton of college previews, and I used to read everything, and then I had this epiphany where I go, dude, everything is overwhelmingly positive. Every new coordinator is a solution to the previous problem. And that just doesn't, the math does not work out that everybody is now better situated than they were the previous year through all these different changes. So sometimes I can get a little too caught up and be like, is anybody worried about their team? And there will be teams where we'll see a few weeks into the season, we go, okay, this unit's a huge problem. Their O-line isn't good. They don't get any pressure with the D-line. The receivers don't get any separation. This quarterback hasn't figured it out yet. But in college football, because it is so new each year, and it's why in the past, whenever you looked at the preseason rankings, you were like, did you win your bowl game? Is the quarterback back? Okay, you're 12th in the country. I mean, that's as simple as it was for a lot of this stuff. So I'm not providing you an alternative that's a better model and trying to figure this stuff out. I'm just saying it's more unknown, and even more so now than we've ever dealt with in years past. So if we look at what everyone is saying and look at the talent dispersed throughout college football, it's pretty clear that everybody feels like Ohio State's the most talented team in the country. And I'm not going to argue that. One of the biggest stories of this offseason with Ohio State is how much money they've raised through their collectives. ESPN.com has this piece up where you talk about the transfer portal, all the money they brought in. And ultimately, it feels very political, right? Because Michigan wins a title, and Michigan's won the last 3 times they faced each other. Ohio State fans are so pissed off, and not just fans, people involved with the team, administrators, university, the coaching staff, all the collectives, like, enough of this. It's like hating somebody in power so much that you cut a check to the other candidate. That's what it feels like. There were 2 quotes that I thought were really interesting. The first from Tyvis Powell, who was part of the 2014 national championship team, who's part of one of the collectives, said, quote, "This was the first year that people were very generous donating money to collectives." Again, just the concept that you're buying the sweatshirts, you're going to the games, you're paying for parking, you're buying whatever package to watch the games that you can't go to. And then you're like, I hate Michigan so much. Here's $75. I'm not sending it to my grandkid for his birthday. The second quote from someone else involved said, quote, "Money began pouring in from small donors as well." Again, hating the opponent so much that you're willing to cut a check. So, however cynical you may be about the motivations of athletes, and certainly with college, probably becoming more cynical with everything, I think it's a real thing to be on this Ohio State roster and be one of the older players that's never beaten Michigan. I still believe in something like that it bothers. Imagine going to Ohio State and saying, well, I guess I'm just going to leave, having never beaten Michigan. I think that's a tough hang when you come back for alumni weekend. And I think there's 6 guys that were projected to be first or second round picks that decided to come back. And we could talk about the money part of it being available, and I'm not dismissing it, but I'd like to believe that it matters enough to this group of players that are older on this roster that they didn't want to leave Columbus without ever beating the Wolverines. So I think that's kind of a cool thing here. The next part of this storyline for Ohio State is Will Howard, the transfer from K-State. I know what you've read. I've read the same stuff, that he was going to lose his job to Avery Johnson at Kansas State anyway, and that's why he transferred. So if you want to be a little harsh on it, and you're going, okay, well, this is your transfer, and he was going to lose his job in the Big 12. But look, he doesn't throw a lot of picks. He's massive, and if you want to use him in the run game, he's just a bull out there. And if he takes care of the football with this talent and the way the schedule works out, it's kind of one of those don't screw it up moments, but you're going to need them to be a little bit more aggressive than probably some of the times you felt like Ohio State just couldn't complete those third and longs against the better football teams last year. If you look at the Big Ten with Ohio State for however many years you want to go back and do this exercise, the problem that I always had in comparing them to, say, the other top teams from the SEC is I just felt like 11 out of 12 games, it's automatic that the talent gap is massive between whoever Ohio State, who they are and whoever they're playing, right? Other than obviously Michigan the last couple of years. And I'd say even like 2 years ago, I thought Ohio State was more talented. Didn't work out. All right, doesn't matter. But I think in those other 11 games, like this is significant whenever you watch them play. And it wasn't the same challenge as another title contender in the SEC. So with expansion, I think the first thing to do is go, okay, well, now the Big Ten is going to be that much tougher, which it should be when you bring in these 4 teams from out west. But if you look at the way Ohio State's schedule actually breaks, the non-conference is Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall. They've got a visit out to Eugene on October 12th. But if you look at their schedule and they finish with Michigan at home, Ohio State traditionally has always been really good at playing one of the other big boys in their non-conference. It kind of feels like the same thing. So even with the expansion and then Michigan at home, just look at Oregon as a non-conference game, even though it is now one of the 9. It's not as daunting as some of this other stuff that you're seeing with schools in the expansion of the 2 major conferences in the Big Ten and the SEC. So, look, I think they win the conference, but I'm not sure I'm going to pick them to win the national championship. We take a look at the SEC in the preseason rankings. They have 4 of the top 6 teams in the country. They have 7 of the top 15. They finished last year, if you include Texas, which can be a little misleading because there would just be more losses in there if they were in the conference. Not necessarily Texas, but you understand the point, right? With 6 of the top 12. So how many teams are they actually going to get in here? So if you look at 7 of the top 15, maybe Tennessee is going to be really good as well. I've read about Nico Iamaleava probably 20 times just this offseason. We'll see. So will they get 4? This is where the preseason rankings can mess things up a bit with the preconceived notions that we have with teams. We don't really have anything else to go on. I remember there was this one voter years ago where he was trying his hardest to just say, I bring nothing to the table. I start a clean slate every single week. I don't want to assume anything about any teams. But it's actually an impossible exercise because if you had a team that was unranked in the preseason rankings beating a good team in week 1, and then you go, okay, I'm starting from scratch and I'm just going to put them way at the top. It's like, okay, but you are also still guilty of believing the team that they beat based on the preseason rankings was an incredible win, and that may not be the case. So I don't know if we're going to have 2 of these SEC teams be disasters. Are they all going to be really good and they only pick each other off once and it all kind of balances out and you end up with a bunch of these teams with really good records? It may take us until November until we find out like 1 or 2 of these teams just isn't even close and should have never been ranked this high. But in those first few weeks, if somebody's beating one of these other teams with the top 15 preseason ranking, we're going to think that it's actually a good win. If you look at last year's rankings, teams number 8 through number 12 were all 2-loss teams, including number 12 Oklahoma, but Liberty would have been the number 12 in the playoff seeding with this year's model. So if you're looking at a 3-loss SEC team, you go, do they get in? Do they get the benefit of the doubt? And I'm going to get to that when I talk about the Big 12 a little bit later. But if you go back 2 years ago, Utah at number 8, K-State at number 9, both had 3 losses. But granted, they were both conference champs, so not at large. But if you go through the rankings for other years, there's going to be 3 losses. That could happen this year. There's going to be a 3-loss team that gets the at-large bid before that number 12 spot. When I look at Bama for DeBoer, it would have been bad enough if they were to miss the playoff in the old format. If he doesn't make it in the 12-team format post-Saban, it's just going to be – they could still be a decent team, but you just know how it's going to go down there in Tuscaloosa because it's going to be a feeling they haven't felt in a really long time. Notre Dame, just a quick aside on them. I love Riley Leonard when he's healthy. We know that he's a baller. I think they get too much criticism overall as a program because they come in at preseason number 7. Some of the stuff just, it's so repetitive. Like, why do you give a shit they don't play in a conference? Who cares? They've been preseason top 13 6 straight years. And I've seen it where it's like, oh, here we go again. Everybody likes Notre Dame. Well, if you look at where they finished in the 6 years they've been ranked in the top 13 in the preseason, they have finished in the top 15 4 years. They finished number 3, number 4, number 5. They had final rankings at number 21 and number 16 the last 2 years. So that's not great, but it's not this massive disappointment. It's because you can label Notre Dame as different. They catch more shit for it. losing in a playoff game and getting smoked, there's this lingering feeling like, oh, these guys again, when in reality, they're kind of holding up better, I think, than people give them credit. The ACC, I have no idea. I know everybody liked Florida State. They were the betting favorite before the season started. They lose to Georgia Tech. We all watched on Saturday. I do love Haynes King for Georgia Tech. I know he didn't light it up statistically. I just think he's really tough going back to when he was at A&M. But clearly, Florida State in this new version of things is still in it at number 10 in the preseason. And then we'll see where that goes because they didn't update the rankings until after this weekend. Clemson's at 14, Miami's at 19, and then NC State with Grayson McCall threw for over 10,000 yards and 88 touchdowns with Coastal Carolina and a top 30 opponent scoring defense. NC State getting a lot of love there too. But I feel like I'm leaning maybe finally to Miami figuring this thing out with Cam Ward. All right, the Big 12. Utah is also the betting favorite here. Number 12 in the preseason. They're tough to go against with Rising and Keithy both healthy. And if they're both healthy and they run through this, well, I don't mean run through because I think the Big 12 is going to be really competitive, but they end up there at the end. I don't think that's going to be really surprising because those guys have been studs when they can actually play. If you go back to previous seasons, they would have been in this playoff in this format in 2019, 21, and 22. K-State's getting a lot of love. Not the favorites, but close in the betting numbers. Number 19 in the preseason. Avery Johnson, who we've already mentioned, and the tailbacks, but they've got new receivers and they're replacing a bunch of guys on the O-line. But their schedule, if you look at it, really lines up for them much better to maybe even be alive if they can't beat out Utah to still put together a really nice season because they have Arizona, Oklahoma State, and Kansas at home, and they don't play Utah in the regular season. Oklahoma State's in a bowl game every year because they're in a bowl game every year, going all the way back to 2005. The schedule's tough early, 4 or 5 game stretch here where it's against Arkansas, Utah, at Kansas State, and then versus West Virginia, all by October 5th. My favorite Big 12 team, though, is Arizona. Fafita to McMillan is also my favorite QB wide receiver combination in college football. McMillan's the best receiver, I think, in college. And I remember last year, September 30th, the game against Washington. I'm back in a hotel room. I'm watching it. I'm left with the what's wrong with Washington question, which was totally wrong and misguided because nothing's wrong with Washington. It's just that Arizona is good. And we started to see that as they continue to rip off a bunch of wins the rest of the regular season. I love their game against SC. And in that game, Caleb Williams has one of my favorite incompletions ever. Not like there weren't other Caleb Williams throws where I was like, this guy's going to be really good. But that one incompletion in particular, I was like, I can't believe he even made that throw. Anyway, moving on. The story of McMillan and Fafita is incredible because I don't know how much you know about this. Locals will know. Arizona people will know. But they've known each other since 8th grade. McMillan was supposed to go to Oregon, and then Cristobal left. So they both went to high school together in California, and there's a few other players on this Arizona roster as well. Jed Fish leaves for Washington. And then collectively, this group that all went to high school together decided to stay at Arizona. But there's another part of the story that I didn't know about. The new head coach, Brett Brennan, was a grad assistant at Hawaii in 1998 with a guy named Troy Thomas, who was the high school coach of Fafita McMillan and the others back in California. So he called. They all vouched for each other, and they got to keep all their dudes. Will they be in the playoffs? Before I get to the playoff thing, one thing that I want to mention that I'm going to miss the Big Ten West. I'm going to miss a fan base every year because they've won games and maybe win the division, pretending that they're good. And it's just what happens sometimes with divisions, but this division was bad for a really long time. I know Iowa 10 years ago ended up being better than I thought. I know Northwestern had a couple nice finishes with the final rankings. But if you go through the 10 years, the 10 straight years, the West lost the Big Ten championship game to the other side. Again, that's 10 straight years without ever winning the conference championship game. They are outscored 352 to 145. I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss a fan base, and I don't even mean one in particular, but I'm going to miss fan bases from that side of the Big Ten because we don't have it anymore. Knowing their team really isn't that good, but then pretending and then arguing a break here, a break there, like, are we national title contenders? Like, probably not. Look at all the defenses. That's one way of looking at it. All right, so prediction time. Ohio State, Big Ten, Georgia, SEC, Utah, Big 12, Miami, ACC. What's the first criticism whenever you say anything nice about Miami? Well, they never figure it out. They have to at some point, don't they? Maybe Clemson's the team. I don't know what to do with them either. Maybe writing off Florida State is a mistake, and I'm not necessarily writing them off, but I don't have them in the playoffs, so that feels like I'm writing them off, and maybe I wouldn't have done that 2 weeks ago. The at-large bids: Oregon, Texas, Penn State. A note on Penn State, and I know Penn State fans, you've heard it before, but if you guys are 11-1, not playing Michigan this year, and you get killed by Ohio State, now maybe Wisconsin's good, maybe USC's good, USC's ranked. Maybe there'll be a couple nice wins. But if Wisconsin isn't good and USC isn't any good, you don't play Michigan and Ohio State kills you and you're 11-1 and you're like, well, look out, title. We get a chance. I will criticize it. All right. Notre Dame I have in. I have Ole Miss in. I like Jackson Dart as much as any quarterback not named Carson Beck in the SEC. I put Clemson in, and I try to figure out a way to put Arizona in before I get to Boise State. But if you go through the exercise, if Arizona's down in this neighborhood, they're 10-2. So that would be, say they lost to Utah and Kansas State. All right, well, that's not great because they lost to the two favorites. Now, where are the other wins? If you look at them versus, say, a Bama 10-2 season, say Bama, and I'm just going in order. I'm not doing it because of matchups or anything. If you look at the ranked teams as of now, and this will change, but if Bama were to lose to Georgia and Tennessee, but then also has wins against Missouri, LSU, and Oklahoma, there's no way. There's no way a Big 12 team with that profile gets in over a Bama team that's 10-2. So I put down Bama as the final at large. I'm not going to run through every single matchup and this team beats this team and these guys advance and they have the bye. I have Oregon winning the national championship. Why not? It is one of my favorite, maybe my favorite piece that comes out all year long, and that is Mike Sando's quarterback tiers from The Athletic. Mike joins us again. He joins us throughout the season because we love having him on, but this is the big unveiling. It came out this week, and you can check it out and play along. What's up, Mike?
Not too much. We held it an extra month this year, and that was hard for me.
I noticed.
It was an internal decision to promote it and whatever, and I was totally fine with that. But like this whole last month, I was done. I was pretty much done with it. I was like, I'm ready to go. I love this time of the year.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I was like, how come it hasn't come out yet? How come it hasn't? And I was like, oh, somebody else may jump them. Yeah, what is going on? Why is there a gap?
No.
So, all right, well, let's start with the first three tier guys. So there's only three quarterbacks in tier one as of right now. And we'll just kind of do it this way. So, for the people that haven't read it or may not get to it or whatever. So just run through the three guys in tier one.
So Patrick Mahomes, unanimous, no surprise. If he wasn't unanimous, that would be a conversation.
50
and then
voters.
Joe Burrow,
right.
Yeah, 50 voters. So 50 coaches and executives, right? I talked to all of them starting after the draft for a 2-month period. And then Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. And Joe Burrow was 43 of 50 votes in tier one. Josh Allen was 39. And then tier two was very close where Lamar Jackson almost made tier one. It was almost 50-50, but there's a couple more votes in tier two. For him, he made big strides, actually came up. And then what we saw was like Herbert and Rodgers, who had been in tier one in the past, slid down, and they actually slid down below Lamar too. So smaller than usual tier two, probably or tier one, a little bit bigger, probably tier two, and some interesting discussions really in tier 2 and 3.
All right, let's start with the worst vote I read in this entire piece, and that is a tier 3 vote for Josh Allen. How?
So when you do this poll and you talk to 50 different people, some people will kind of be right down the middle and be typical of the other voters. Some others there were some voters who only had one quarterback in tier one and a smaller number of twos, and they kind of think a lot of guys are in the middle. So I think it was the same person accounted for both 3 votes for Josh Allen and Lamar, saying these guys are way too dependent on their running the ball. And in Josh Allen's case, he's all over the map making bad decisions. And in Lamar's case, when he has to pass the ball, he can't do it. That's an extreme outlier take that's worth mentioning because, hey, you noticed what are these votes on there for? But obviously not representative of the panel and probably says more about the voter than as much as it does about the quarterback in some cases, just because when you talk to 50, you're going to get a fringe over here and you're going to hit a fringe over here. And some people had there. I think there's a voter that had 7 people in tier 1. So that's what happens, and it all averages out. That's why we have 50.
Yeah, I just felt like the Allen debate, at least for this year after this past season, is just it's over. I would
It
take
is,
him.
yeah.
Yeah, I would take him
It's not a
instead of
debate.
anybody other than obviously Mahomes. And even loving Burrow as much as I do, with his injury history and the physicality of the two, and knowing Burrow's weapons compared to
Yeah.
Allen. And we'll see what happens this year, because that's certainly going to be part of a concern. I just don't know how anybody could watch the last few years and want anybody behind Mahomes more than Allen. But like you
Just
said, like
yeah, and
50 people, you're going to find stuff.
but there is a component, more than one person, of people who feel that Josh Allen still goes off the rails enough. And so I was looking at some of that. I created a little bit of an index of like just disaster plays, and I just went in and measured. Okay, if this play cost your team like 3 points of EPA on a single play, that would be a huge swing. And the Bills are near the top of those in the last few years, so they do have some blow up plays. And so I think that would be the only criticism of Josh Allen, is sometimes just trying to do too much. But I'm with you. I think one of the quotes in there was like, right now, Mahomes and Allen are the two guys you're worried the most playing against. They can really, really, truly carry it.
Okay. Stafford. I enjoyed seeing this because I went through all the Stafford voting, and he ends up tied for 5th with Herbert. But if you go through Stafford's history, he's accumulated 89 tier 3 votes throughout his entire career. And it's funny that it almost feels like, even more so than the Super Bowl win, his play this past year, it's almost like this farewell tour of appreciation from Matthew Stafford, where he was probably somebody that was dragged down by the accumulation of what wasn't happening around him in Detroit. And now for everyone to be like, you know what, this guy was always kind of good, because as we know with quarterbacks, the wins are not always created equal. And I just believe, like the same way we
Yeah.
get into Herbert here, I just will never deviate from this belief. There are some amazing quarterbacks who have awful things around them for far too long, and then people just trying to blame the quarterback when they're just in an awful situation. It exists. It happens. It will always happen.
Yeah. It like becomes a part of them. Like, it's just, you're right. And in Detroit, all of those years, yeah, they had some decent teams at times. And I think there's clearly a distinction to be made with, Mahomes almost over any quarterback in history, from being able to win it all for teams that weren't good on defense. That's a rarity, and he was able to do that. But I'm with you. Stafford was there for so long that I think, he ended up taking on more of the blame for an inability to go further in the playoffs than he probably deserved, just because the organization was so bad. And you see him go to a good organization, and he wins the Super Bowl within, right away.
Herbert is another one that seems to be kind of going along this. So it seems like Herbert drops down a tier. So where's the conversation around him? And then ultimately, what is fair?
Yeah.
Because I think there are
So
some comparisons with Detroit Stafford.
a little bit. So yeah, exactly. Herbert though was 5th last year, and he's 5th now. And so 5th last year was good enough to be in tier 1 because he had a higher average.
Mhm.
So he didn't really necessarily lose a huge standing among the other quarterbacks. He got passed by Lamar, but uh, I see that happening too. That's like, okay, wait a minute now. You've had a few years where we think that if you're a true tier oneer, you would have made a little bit more of a difference, including in some moments, some games. I mean, shoot, they had a playoff game. They're up 27-0, couldn't make a play to win the game. That's part of this. And then there was an interesting discussion in there too. One person drew a little bit of a comparison to a Trevor Lawrence, guys in a little bit of struggling organizations, guys who aren't really strong personalities. And then you know, as we try to figure out, okay, is it Herbert? Is it the defense? Is it the organization? And you start to, in your mind, you go, okay, is there something missing with this quarterback? And I think that has happened, like you said, with Stafford, and it will happen a little bit with Herbert as you just go, wait a minute, shouldn't he win more anyway?
Where are you with Rodgers now?
Uh, I feel like I feel like I think a 2 is probably a safe compromise vote for him, uh, just based on the age and injury and this stage of his career in a new place. But I think there's a really good chance he's still tier 1. I think there's a really good chance.
You seem extremely
So,
cautious right now. Your tone has changed.
well, it's been a while, and I worry about the injury component. If you go back to last year and look at the tiers last year, one of the most prescient things that was written was this is way more games on turf than Rodgers has played before, and just be wary of his ability to hold up. And no one was predicting it would take 4 snaps. But I have a little bit of a worry about, at this stage, his willingness, eagerness, ability to stand in there and take the shots over the course of a full season. I think in any one game, I or I think he would be tier 1. But I'm just no, he's up there. It's going to fall off at some point. And are we going to start to see that now? Is it more in my mind than it's been before?
I'll tell you what, somebody saw it though. I couldn't believe this quote. You go back and watch those first 4 plays before he got hurt. He did not look good. He looks old. 4 plays?
But there's more to the quote. So when we were editing this thing,
okay, all right.
Part of my editing process.
Go ahead. Tell us what happened.
I believe this is a really good tip for editing. When you do a big project, I read the story aloud to another person, because then you catch things like, wait a minute. And this was one we really talked about in the process, was like, does this come off as you're evaluating the 4 snaps? It's ridiculous. But there's more to the quote. You got the rest of the quote there, right? I can get it right here. He said, first place, he not look good. He looks old. If they can't protect him and they can't run the football, it'll be just what you saw late stages in Green Bay. He became ineffective. I'm looking at what he is, not who he is. So that person is having an opinion of what Rodgers looked like at the end in Green Bay, saying, you know what? It was only 4 plays, but I wasn't seeing anything different. We may say that's ridiculous in 4 plays. And I'm skeptical. So I think that context is helpful, that he's tying it to the past and like, hey, it's been a while since I've seen him really play at an elite level.
That's fine. But to say that it carried over and he could see it in 4 plays, I think is a lot for me to put faith in.
Yeah. We talked about it. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's a fair point.
Sando's like, yeah, I went on Russillo, did the tiers again, and all he did was pick apart different quotes that he didn't like from front office
people. I love
people.
it. So, I love that part of it too. I want to know what bothered you.
I think CJ, as far as like, there's some young quarterbacks. I think it's more like the dual threat guys that can prop up their value in the first year, because their instincts are telling them to run a little bit more. But, the way I look at running as a quarterback is that, it's great if your landscaping is awesome, if you got a pool and the deck and the whole thing. But like, if the house isn't efficient and it's not, going to hang up to the weather, like it's cool to have all that stuff. But like, the foundation of who you are as a quarterback still is the passing game. And Stroud showed us that in his first season. They add even more weapons. Any concern other than just the stubbornness of somebody to not want to put him in first tier or higher in the second tier because of just the 1 year? Is there anything that you even had heard that was from anyone in this group that was alarming about CJ Stroud?
Not at all. He got 12 tier 1 votes. And so he's really the cutoff. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 7 guys that got at least 19, and he had 12, and then the next guy's at 4. So to me, that's a huge endorsement in the first year. I don't really have or picked up on any concerns about him, but I do think that we probably gave him more of the credit than we would give some other guys based on what our perception was of Houston before he got there. We thought, this is a terrible team, poorly run, and they're going to throw this guy to the wolves. They played a tough schedule early, first-time head coach, first-time coordinator. And so then when it went well and Stroud looked good, we probably in our minds thought Stroud was overcoming all of these things, when in reality, maybe the offensive line was good. Maybe we misevaluated their receiving core was good. Maybe Bobby Slowick, who we didn't know anything about, is really good. Maybe D'Amico Ryans is good. So maybe all these things we thought he was overcoming were actually pretty well in his favor, more than we thought. And so it's possible that this early on, because I think Stroud sets the record for any second year quarterback debuting in tiers, because we don't have rookies. I don't think any one of them's come in higher. So did we give him a bump based off the expectation, our own possible misevaluation of Houston? And so he starts a little higher. What do you think of that?
I like it. And it may be the right answer. And I thought, it was it's like anybody who was watching this as it was happening. They're like, this team is good. They're going to be in the playoffs. It seemed like one voter was very down on him, though, in that Baltimore game. That quote
for
was
putting him
shared.
in tier one, just for putting him in tier one. It was not like saying it was just saying, hey, the wheels came off a little bit there. And so before I put him in tier one, I just like to see him in that type of situation again. And that's all. And I don't think that's an insult to him at all. He's played one season and he got 12 tier ones and he has the highest second season debut of any quarterback in 11 years of doing this. That's a lot of endorsement.
Okay, so we run through it. Mahomes 1, Burrow 2, Allen 3. There's your tier 1. Tier 2 is Lamar, Stafford, Herbert, Rodgers, Stroud. And then the rest of tier 2 is Dak, Goff, Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, Kirk Cousins, Jordan Love. I don't even know what to ask about Dak anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't have a question.
Well, to me, if we would have gone back 8 years ago and you said, what's the definition of each tier? And I would say, well, tier 1 would be, Brady and Breeze and
Rodgers.
And I would say tier 2 would be, think of Matt Ryan or Stafford or these guys that in any one year, if the planets aligned around them, they might be the MVP. But really, there's a hole or two that shows up come playoff time. And for the most part, they're just a really good quarterback. That's now Dak. He's just a consistently really good quarterback who probably there is a hole there or he would have pushed through further because he's had last few years, they've had good defenses and that sort of a thing. So wouldn't you say that he's right in the middle of tier 2. And to me, he's kind of the poster guy for tier 2 right now. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like he's good. People that really want to beat up on him be like, oh, he's a huge disappointment. I know what the playoff stuff there is as well. I mean, wasn't he second in MVP last year as well on top of everything else? So I just don't know if the detractors are on. It has not been described or explained to me clear enough the things that he's incapable of doing that hold them back. Because offensively, they've consistently put up too many big numbers while he's been there for me to think that he's actually holding them back. But then there are other times where I think we've talked ourselves into like what he could be. And it's like, I guess he's not going to be that either. So he's like perfectly placed in a 15-year land of confusion. That's kind of how I feel about Dak. Because I've watched so much of it. I go, I think he's pretty good. And then when you get like all in on him, then it doesn't happen. And I don't know if that's just the randomness of sports or something inherently wrong with him. I haven't heard it explained.
Or organizationally, there's some issues with them, too. So football is the ultimate team sport, but
it's not like they're cheap with the weapons with him, though. They don't.
No, he's had good offensive lines and those things over the years. He's had good weaponry and he's been good. I thought one of the interesting quotes was, Dak can roll out of bed and throw for 450 yards. And I was like, okay, I was not sure of that, but I went and looked at the history of 450-yard games and he's like right near the top. The guy was right. But then the rest of the sentence said but if you want to go into tier 1, don't you have to win a few of these playoff games and really be the reason, put the team on your back when the chips are down and do it when it really matters. And maybe in any 1 year, that's an unfair thing to say, but over a 10-year period, is it fair to expect that? Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's fair to expect that. I think Goff is one of the most amazing redemption stories at the position that we've seen in modern history. And that's because I've gone through all the first round quarterbacks. I do it too often and talk about how many of them don't work out, but then how many of them had gone on to win a playoff game. How many people flame out with the team that drafted them as a first rounder, then go on and win a playoff game somewhere else. And it actually happened twice this year with Goff and Baker, and it hadn't happened like in forever. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting about Goff is you could make the argument of, well, they knew they were upgrading to Stafford, so it's not the same as like a Baker moving on from Cleveland. But, if you pay Goff that kind of money and you just went to the Super Bowl and you actually want to move on from that quarterback, that told me at that time, hey, any doubts you have about him are totally warranted. And now I feel like on top of everything else Detroit has going on, like this is a very rare thing to pull off where you look at him is in that top third of the league at that position. And I really don't know what the debate is anymore. Like he has now become a guy in a way that I never thought he would be.
He had been a Super Bowl quarterback though with the Rams. It wasn't like he had a failed career there. It was more for whatever reason. I think Sean McVay would probably even admit that he was a little hard on him at the time. And I think teams are a little bit more now more willing and have more money available to them to move on from guys when they sign a big contract. And so that could be one of the reasons why a Goff would get a second chance. Teams are more willing to take like the big cap hit or all these things. You see some analysts who come out of like a different era have been wrong predicting like the team would never do this. The cap hit would be too big. Well, you want to bet? We've seen this happen multiple times now with these guys where they take the big cap hits. And I think that's a little bit of a difference in the game. And then you also have now more coaches that are willing and able to tailor their offense around their guy. They're not looking for a specific skill set till they find it. They're like, hey, we got Goff. We can make this look good around Goff. We can do this. We can make it look good around Baker. Hey, you know what? We can make it look good for Geno Smith. Right? Some of these guys get chances in systems that are set up better. And then Detroit, just like the Rams did, has done a great job of building around him. He succeeded in two places where they had really good offensive lines, a good run game, apparently a very good coordinator play caller, and some weapons. That's kind of how it works. He had the exact opposite extreme when he started out with the Rams, and he looked horrible.
Jalen Hurts comes in at 11. If you went back to the start of last year, it was, I would say, consensus that he was the best quarterback in the NFC. And now he's fourth, according to this. What was the conversation around Hurts?
Some of it's just around Philly too. That I feel like they had such a great thing going when Shane Steichen was there designing the offense, and that's where some of the optimism around Anthony Richardson comes too. Is at least you've got this coach that can set it up well, and then they've changed in Philly, and now they've gone to I think a pretty good coordinator in Kellen Moore, but a guy who's more known for wanting to pass the ball. And I think people are wondering, how's that going to look with Jalen Hurts, who when he kind of had to pass some, not that he's not a good passer because he is, but when he had to pass it looked rough last year. So what's that all going to look like now in a pressure cooker situation where they've hired some high profile coaches to the staff? There's a feeling that it's a big important year for the head coach. We're not sure how well he's going to handle that, and then you lose Kelsey, right? Some of those sorts of things. So I don't know. It doesn't feel like an off season where everybody that is sure and wanting to bet on that's going to be good for Hurts. They're kind of like, God, I hope it doesn't fall off here.
So if you go Hurts 11, Purdy 12, Cousins 13, Jordan Love 14.
Yep.
How many guys would you want? Well, let me put it this way. Would you rather have Jordan Love over Cousins? Yes, because the age thing. Would you rather have him over Purdy?
You probably would if you were just starting a team from nothing. Now, would Kyle Shanahan? Maybe. I think you probably would.
Hurts?
What? It's funny, in your mind, what you do is when there's an unknown, you project this unlimited upside on a guy like Love, right? Whereas you feel like with Hurts, you've seen more of what the upside is. So are you like, ooh, yeah, Love, yeah, he could be way better than that.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to find like the riser here in this. Where look, the Cousins one isn't fair. Injuries, age, it's fine. Purdy, I bet you more people would rather have Love moving forward. I'd say the same thing for Hurts, maybe more based on the expectation thing. I mean, you could get into a Goff age thing, but it's not
you
that
might get
dramatic.
To Stroud. You might get to Stroud before more people would say Stroud, or what do you think?
I think more
Would
people would
people?
push. I think Stroud's the cutoff. I think Stroud's where
Yeah,
you probably are going, wait a minute. But I don't
yeah.
know. I mean, I'm not going to be
I think
shocked if we're
with
doing this in a year and Love is ahead of Stroud.
yeah, so Love basically just off of one season,
Half a
moved to the
season?
bottom of tier two. Yeah, which is pretty good. So
Yeah.
yeah, these are kind of a little bit of a snapshot in time of guys moving, and I think you're right. If we check back in November, maybe Love would continue to be moving up, but it would be premature at this stage, before the season to put him there. Does that make sense? He's got to
Yeah.
prove it a little more.
Yeah. It makes all the sense. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go to tier 3. At 15, it's Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr, Geno Smith, and Russell Wilson. Tua is probably the best statistical, highest compensated quarterback that it feels like all of his momentum has disappeared. Like we spent a lot of time discussing who he was and where he was. And I think this is accurate. I think this is right where there's just too many guys now that I trust that have gone, if it's not this or it's not this, these timed things with everything coordinated, throwing to
Yeah.
elite speed on the outside. Once it becomes up to him, you have a really good chance of stopping them on that play. And I think that's a very fair summary of
Not
who
only
he
that,
is.
it looks bad when it comes about him, and I feel like for the next guys, Trevor Lawrence and Kyler Murray, when it all breaks down, they might pull a rabbit out of the hat more often. Those guys have the ability to do that. Tua, you're right, I think is interesting. But the top four guys, what stands out to me in this tier is they're all making a ton of money. Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Kyler, and Watson. That's a lot of money for if I'm the owner of the team. I'm saying, hey, wait a minute, or do we have are we paying a win because of money to these win with quarterbacks? What do we got here? Oh no! Trevor Lawrence is great. He's going to be great, right? Can you just see some of those discussions? And out of that group, you'd feel like Deshaun Watson. I'd almost be surprised if he's really good again. It just feels like there's been too much of not good. Tua, I feel like we know what he is, for better and worse, and he'll be fine as long as they have it set up nicely for him. I think Lawrence and Murray are the interesting ones who, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they moved up, uh, a tier. Don't you think?
Lawrence, yeah, mean, I think Kyler's certainly had moments that I feel better about. Like, okay, at least I've seen some stretches where going back a couple of years ago, I felt like he was carrying
Yeah,
Arizona. There was a moment
yeah,
in time where
yeah,
I, like a lot of the guys, don't know, hey, I actually kind of like him, to I'm just off of him now because I think his tendency to get hurt, like I think his ability to get hurt is far more fragile than other quarterbacks. I've just seen certain plays where I think he's coming up off the ground. I'm like, is he dinged up after that? And it would make sense because he is so slight and he's not thick in the way Russell Wilson was thick, but yet a smaller
yeah,
quarterback.
yeah, yeah. He's just the first thing you notice watching the game is, God, he looks small. It's
Sure.
and you didn't feel that way with some of the other guys, but I think he is suffering from the injury thing, and then remember his contract clause came out that killed him. Where he just basically needs to get on the field again, and I think he's better than what he's probably been perceived at the last year, but he's got to play to change it. And I think he has a decent setup there with in Arizona that if he can stay healthy, he'll at least I could see him coming up at least a little bit of a notch.
It feels like the momentum for Trevor Lawrence, though, is definitely heading in the wrong direction. What was kind of the general consensus you got? Because it was 18 tier 2 votes and 32 tier 3 votes.
Yeah. So we talked about, Herbert and Stafford, the organizational thing, right? And so he comes in with a bad organization historically, and then has Urban Meyer, and then has a nice bounce back year. And they were actually 8-3 last year. Gets a series of injuries and isn't able to overcome, doesn't look good. And now it felt like to me, people kind of withdrew on him a little bit, maybe more than I expected. And when this first came out, I thought, is that a little low? Is that a little harsh for him? But then when I tried to find who I would put him above, in the bottom of tier two, that didn't feel right either. So he's probably right about where he belongs, but I think he can be better than that.
Is there anyone else in tier 3 that you look at that surprises you? Like, I mean, it kind of feels
So
like it makes sense, to be honest with you. Like
it
when I
really
got to
makes
this
sense to
part of
me.
it, yeah, go ahead.
It really makes sense to me. I feel like Geno Smith has played a little better than that. Like I feel better about Geno Smith than Derek Carr right now, even though they're both tied at 3.0. But when I'm like, would I move Geno up above those other guys at the top of the tier? I mean, not necessarily, but you can really see the drop after that. After Geno, you get Russell Wilson just barely holding on in tier three, other than the guys like Anthony Richardson and Will Levis who haven't played very much. It's a lot of guys who you feel like the ship has kind of sailed on them, right? Like these guys aren't even necessarily, if these guys are in your competition maybe next year to be starters, but hopefully aren't your guy long term. A lot of them.
You are the foremost expert. If there was a episode of Pawn Stars and it was a piece of Russell Wilson memorabilia, they'd be like, we need to call up our friend Mike Sando. And then you would come in and go, unfortunately, this is from his Denver stop. And
Yes.
even though it is real, it is not nearly as valuable as some of his earlier Seahawks stuff. So I'm sorry, and then the guy'd be like, all right, I'll give you $20. Anyway,
Yeah.
long
Yeah.
setup for that. Not a great payoff. Look, you were on this. You were on this early, and it was even worse. As bad as it was, I cannot believe it was as bad as it was in Denver. And I mean, as bad as it was towards the end of Seattle, I can't believe it was that bad. And then you had one offensive
Yeah.
coordinator just say, quote, to me, he'd be a 5 if he wasn't with Tomlin. So is there hope for Steelers fans?
Yeah. What is the hope of the ceiling, though? Picture this. You're a team that it seems like can go win 9 or 10 games just almost anyway with Mike Tomlin there. So I think they can do that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they won 10 games. But what's your real upside in the playoffs? Are you going to be hoping to win a wild card game? Right. So to me, there's just a real ceiling on um, where they can go, unless Russell Wilson were to just recapture some magic. But I think a lot of his magic was, some athleticism that has left him. He had the ability to break the rules of turning your back to the pass rush and running this way and that way, and then making incredible plays. He could turn a lost cause play into a home run. And now those lost cause plays at best turn into an incompletion or a short dump off, it feels like to me. So I don't, yeah, I think they can have a decent season. I just don't know. I don't think they can go very far. And by the way, Seattle, since their defense started falling off, never did anything in the playoffs either. Even when Russell Wilson was getting a lot of tier one votes, they weren't going to championship games for years.
I can't believe you got 3 tier 2 votes. Yeah. Well, like we said, we've already covered 50 people, just a test in human tendencies. All right, tier 4: Daniel Jones, Justin Fields, Gardner Minshew, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, Bryce Young, Sam Darnold, Jacoby Brissett. I'll ask 2 questions around this. Who are you most concerned about, and who do you think has the best chance to just break out of this?
Well, I think you set aside the Gardner Minshew type of a journeyman type of a player, and I would and set aside even Darnold. I don't think the hopes are that high for him. You'd be very concerned about Daniel Jones, just not only from his injuries, he's had neck and he's had knee, just where he's at, where they're at, right? I mean, you haven't seen enough good from him to think there's more. Now, I think there's a different level of expectations for a Will Levis, who's a second round pick. I mean, you know, the most hope is probably for Anthony Richardson with a high ceiling, but can he stay healthy and be an accurate enough passer over time? Playing that style, I think, is a legitimate question based on his start. So, I don't know that there's a great answer to that. If I were to go through these guys, I would say Bryce Young probably could make a big jump and have a decent season, but how? What is his ceiling, right?
I know what was shared about Bryce Young from the excerpts that we have uh,
Mhm.
available to us, but was there more, oh my God, he's not going to be good, or more, they did a massive injustice to throwing him in like that? What was the more
So it's
common
funny.
thing you heard?
I keep this file where I've got comments that I used or didn't use, and I've got it to him right now. So okay, the first one is couldn't have been in a worse scenario. Um, another one disaster situation. But the arm strength is the one thing I really worry about him. Can he make the big time throws? Major concerns: size, strength, arm, just all of it. Ability to stay healthy. Thrown to the wolves. Ultimate 4, meaning you can't judge him because of how bad it was around him. There's another quote that I think I used about, hey, intelligence is good, arms good, but size is going to be a deal breaker for him ultimately. So no one who played him came away feeling like, hey, it was a really bad situation, but wow, look out when they get it right. I didn't really get any of that.
Okay. All right, let's finish with this then. I'm just going to throw you 6 names. All right. Higher or lower for next year.
Okay.
All right. And I'll have to pull up where they're at now too, just to make sure I'm playing along. All right. So Hurts dips down a bit, stays in the same tier. He's at 11. Higher or lower next year?
A little bit lower.
Okay. Tua at 15.
About the same.
Okay. Trevor Lawrence, 16.
Higher.
Yeah, that's a weird season. I don't like the way they talked about him in your piece. It's like, what if he's actually like a 2.5? You're like, is that what's going to happen with him? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Kyler, 17.
I think he'll be higher.
Yeah, healthy is higher. But if he gets hurt again, then, I mean, we're going to be.
That's actually, when you mentioned Tua, that kind of worried me too. The one reason I almost said lower was because, like, are we just taking for granted he's plays whole seasons now? That's like a thing, he did it last year, but is that forever? That's the one concern.
Deshaun Watson at,
I think lower.
20. What was he? 18? I think lower.
18.
Okay.
I think he's trending down.
What about Justin Fields? 24.
He may not even be in the poll next year if he's not a starter, if he doesn't get a chance to start. So he's at 24. I could see him coming up a little bit higher. I could see him getting enough reps that he goes to the very top of 4 or a bottom 3.
It's an awesome piece of work, man. And like I said at the beginning, it's one of my favorite things to check out. So thanks for all the work that you do on it. And if you want to read along and get even more in depth and see the trends and where all this stuff is going and the historical votes on it, you can check it out at The Athletic under Mike Sando's tab. All right, man. Enjoy week 1. And thanks as always. We'll catch up again soon. All right.
Thanks. Loved it. Appreciate it.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
The email address, as always, lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. Life Advice today is brought to you by State Farm. Whatever your needs, State Farm helps you score an affordable price when you bundle home and auto insurance with a personal price plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Hey, guys. What's new?
What's up?
Jeez, I don't even know where to put my feet. I feel like I haven't been doing this in a long time.
How long has it actually been, Ceruti?
It's been over 2 weeks because we taped a bunch of Life Advice stuff. We had a few things on tape. So yeah, since we officially did a Life Advice, since we've really all been, the gang's been back together, it's been probably 2+ weeks.
Strange. I don't like it.
I do.
Same.
Yeah, I don't, though. I also understand what you're saying. You know what I mean? Because when I was getting started this morning, early wake up, just had a lot to get to. 5:30 at the notepad, at the laptop. And it was funny because it's like not doing cardio for a really long time or something. And then you go, wait, I do this before every show? Like, there's a lot to do. I gotta check and double check stuff, probably get something wrong, not in mid-season form, but yeah, ready to go, I guess.
It's always funny too when we'll record, a couple Life Advices during one day to, put them on the tape shows. And because they get stretched out over a couple weeks, like I forget that we even talked about stuff. Somebody will tweet me and be like, "You're an idiot for saying this on Life Advice." I'm like, man, that felt like last year. When the heck did we tape that?
Get a
I
life,
remember
dude.
talking about
I don't
that.
even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know. I'm trying to minimize my screen here too. I'm having a really hard time with it. I don't want to look at myself this much. My
Priscilla
screen's
goes
all
off the
different
grid,
and
and
everything.
technology is just he has no
It's
idea.
a
what's
little
going on.
clunky, huh?
Yeah, I'll just try to keep looking at Kyle's St. John's hat. You did not steal that, right?
No,
That was a
didn't steal
gift?
that. It was a gift.
Good. Okay. That's good. It's good to know. So yeah, did Spain and then post Spain. And by the way, you get some good reaction because I wasn't sure how the bullfighting part was going to go over, but I think people understood. And there's a couple people that it's not for everybody. I'll say that.
And
Silence.
food guys didn't like it, but I think you knew that when you were going in.
Food guys get really mad about it.
I'm getting
You
tweets
actually
about food guys like, "Hey, I didn't go. That wasn't me. I wasn't there."
Yeah. Kyle didn't go. If everything worked out perfectly, that's not really a great pod. Like I screwed it up. When somebody sent me the link that it was ranked the #1 food destination in the world, I did have a moment. I was like, you could have done a better job. Could have done a better job with this. Trying to think of like, what is it? It's not like going to Springfield, Mass and not going to the Basketball Hall of Fame because, you're in Springfield. So I don't think the Hall of Fame is on the level of the food in that region of the world.
What a comp.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think of
just
like
a guess, but yeah.
What could you go to? Although if you're in Springfield, it's high on the list of things you would probably want to do in Springfield, Mass.
Accurate.
I'm just trying to think like, what is it like going through the Grand Canyon and be like, I'm just going to go this way and not see it?
Yes, from a distance.
Yeah. Google Maps says this is actually quicker. Sorry, kids. Maybe next time. I do a lot of like when I'm at these places, I'm like, next time I'll just hit that up. It's like, next time? Are you sure? Are you sure
Pretty
there's going to be next
presumptuous,
time? Yeah, like I did it with Iceland a few times. Like, next time I'll kind of hang down here. I was like, next time? You're not going to Iceland again. I highly doubt I go to Iceland again. San Sebastian has a better chance. Saint-Tropez will absolutely happen again. But anyway, so once I got back from there, maybe I'll share a couple food emails because man, do people get pissed.
I thought your salad rant was on point though. I feel like you are right about European salads.
Yeah, stop fucking them up, Europe. Nothing to add, no notes. But I went up to British Columbia because the next trip I was like, okay, I have this other window. I don't want to fly all the way across the globe again or whatever, however far it was. I want to do something easier. Flew into Vancouver, beautiful city. Didn't want to hang out in the city. Immediately got on the road, drove up to Squamish, where you remember the Netflix doc on the climber who like nobody knows who he is and he like flies up the wall, saw the whole deal. Squamish, cool little town. I don't know that I'd summer there unless you really loved rock climbing. And then I started getting like really adventurous. There was even a chance because like Chris Long was like, go to Yellowknife. And I'm like, Yellowknife's way up there. And then I actually looked at flights to Yellowknife. And then I was going to take a picture of myself in front of the town sign, Yellowknife, just giving him the finger, being like, I actually did it. It was like, this is a lot of work.
For a bit. It's a lot for a bit.
Yeah, for a bit. Like I was going to have to go back to Vancouver and they only like flew out once a day. And then the return flight was tough. And I was looking at accommodations. Like, what if you get to Yellowknife and like you can't fish and you just walk around for like 2 days? And you're like, is that worth
Hilarious.
it? That doesn't
got you, Chris.
Yeah. You didn't think I'd do it. But I started like looking at some of these towns going like, what's going on with this town? Boston Bar is an actual town name. What's up with Pemberton? So I drove to Whistler, which of course everybody's heard about Whistler, and my affinity for ski towns, even as not really a skier. And I got to Whistler, and that was awesome. Fly fished, really good day. Nothing worth taking a picture of. It was fine. Right next to the golf course, did an 11-mile hike to this lake, Garibaldi, which is south of Whistler. And then the real move was like, okay, everybody here is mountain biking. And apparently the ski slope is just transformed into this ultimate like mountain bike trail maze, right? And I'm asking around, and I go, what's the deal with this? They're like, it's like the best facility in North America. I go, well, dude, if it's right here, walking distance, let's not treat it like San Sebastian's restaurants. Let's actually
Next
do
time.
it.
Yeah.
Right. Next time. So I grab the mountain bike, gear up, body armor, helmet, get my day pass. I'm on a nice Santa Cruz, nice piece of equipment. And I'm on the lift. And of course, like the first time you're loading the bike in front of you, I'm like, I'm going to fuck this up. Stand out immediately.
Good thing I bought the $20 insurance.
Noob. And I'm sitting next to these two guys. And of course, it's just because I'm getting older, which I don't know why I'm doing this, starting conversations with strangers. But I was like, so what's the story? I was like, what's the story with this place? Like, how hard is it really going to be? And the guy's like, have you done it before? I'm like, is decades too long to have taken off from downhill mountain biking? Do I pick it right back up? And he's like, dude, start on the easy ones. He's like, just definitely, he goes, take the easy one first and then do it again so that you kind of understand like how it plays out. I was like, all right, no problem. 2 turns into the easy one. I'm like, this is the easy one. And you don't know the lines and you're like, oh, this is another turn. And I'm kind of like laughing, make it down, do it again. I was like, all right, fine. And then I stepped it up over the course of the day, where I took a wrong turn on one, where the very start of the trail was like an immediate drop off this huge rock, which felt awful when I landed. And then there was another one where I noticed, I'm like, what's going on up there? I was like, oh, it's just a ravine into a river if I don't hit this turn right. And then there was another one that I just completely, because the trails kind of like intertwine with each other. And then I ended up like taking a wrong turn on one where I was like, okay, this isn't fun. Anyway, made it through, and also realized too, as I did this, there's a gap in my health insurance. It doesn't kick back in until the beginning of September. So I was like, this is the worst. So after I made it down 7 to 8 runs without any major injury or crashing, my adrenaline was through the roof. Not because I was awesome, but because I was safe. I can't believe maybe they are, and I just didn't see it. People must fuck themselves up daily on that deal, because you just get up there, you're on your bike, and you're like, I already know the mindset of the guys, like, whatever, dude, I got this. Where do we start in the intermediates? And it's like, no, not if you don't know what you're doing. I mean, even the first few turns in the easiest one, I was just going like, wait, I have to like lean into this thing and get sideways to get around it. But it was fun. I'm really glad I did it. Got out there, pushed the fear factor a bit, and can't wait for that insurance to kick in.
What's a summertime ski lodge like? Is it like even close to the magic that a wintertime ski lodge is, or is it just sort of like we're just here to use the bathrooms?
Magic is an interesting word, because I do feel like the winter makes it a majestic place.
Totally.
But the summer, it goes off. I mean, it was. I don't know what the hell is going on. If there's some sort of Elon Musk pipeline that we don't know about that goes from Australia and New Zealand straight to Whistler, because every dude, I'm like, what is up? He's like, yeah, there's a lot of us. I don't know if I
Do you have to make sure you got the New Zealand's right, because they might still have beef with you?
Because I was like, because you guys just run shit in town. Do you like go to the dive bars and it's just you? It's like pretty much, yeah. So I don't know. I didn't do as well. I should have tried a second time. Food was great. Hit everything. Didn't really go out though. And then made it down to Victoria, which the only mistake with Victoria is that I had rented a car. I didn't want to take the ferry and take the car over. Lifelong ferry guy, standby is just the nightmare word for me. So passenger ferry over, even though it's also the vehicle ferry. I don't know what the weight was. I didn't feel like dealing with it. And then stayed in Victoria for a couple of days. Victoria, really beautiful. But when I go back, I'll explore Victoria Island a little bit more, because I was hanging out. I shouldn't say I was hanging out. She was the bartender, so it's not like we were dating. Well, she's like, oh, you got to check out this town and this place. And I was like, what's it? She's like, it's just super vibey. And, if somebody describes something as super vibey, it means you have to go. But yeah, joined a gym there. There was someone who was literally right out of Central Casting telling us, about her powerlifting days. And I was like, okay, cool. Good to know. This is the story though from Whistler. This is the story from Whistler that I want to share with you. So one of the nights I go over to a steakhouse solo, and the guys next to me, they've had a few, but they're not like annoying. They've had a few.
The volume's up a little more than usual.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, you're gonna eat that jokes. You're like, yeah, I'm probably gonna eat it. But then
I just ordered.
I try to alpha them with are you going to eat that? Do you want some? Do you want some?
Oh no, I couldn't.
No, I don't care. Then they offered me some wine. I was like, no, I'm hitting the trails again tomorrow early. We get some lines up.
You're just one-upping each other with offers.
Right. So he was friendly enough, so there wasn't anything that like threw me off. And then the bartender, of course, was from New Zealand or Australia. And the American guy that's at the bar with his friends is like, I got to tell you, your blacks here are like way scarier than back home. And I was like, what the fuck? Right? I'm like, did he just say that? And so now I'm like, utensils down, kind of like looking forward. And then I'm like, this is going to be weird. And then the bartender's like, oh yeah, but I wouldn't trade our blacks for anything. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? I'm like, what? I was like, now the bartender's in on this? And then the customer says one more thing. And I was like, I'm like, is this a skit? What? And then I realized they were talking about the downhill bike trails.
Yeah.
Black Diamonds.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were like, the blacks here are more challenging. It's like, oh.
I was always wondering what you thought.
Like
That's
that
crazy.
Makes way more sense than somebody
Yep.
saying that. Yeah.
It does kind of seem like that CBS show, like, what would you do? You're like, am I supposed to?
That's like a Modern Family line, like joke written into like a line.
Oh, totally.
Isn't there like the Phil Dunphy thing when he's talking about the offensive line, right? And they were talking about the blind side, and it was like, oh, like it was that like that tight end, and she goes offensive line, and she's like, excuse me, I forget what the exact joke is, but it's literally a joke written into Modern Family.
It was a good pull by you. I didn't see that episode.
The first sentence, that might have been great. I didn't watch the show, so good one.
You didn't watch Modern Family? Wow, okay.
I didn't.
I guess that checks out.
Yeah, there was just this little window of 15 seconds with the back and forth where I'm like, this can't actually be happening right now. All right. Let's get to a couple submissions. Do we read one food one? Or do we just move on?
Give the people a taste, no pun intended.
Let me say I'm a fan of your podcast, except for this one.
Yeah.
If you don't like the culture and the pinchos, see, I'm already out of season. I can't pronounce it anymore. If you don't like the pinchos bar, fine. You're there to try different types of food, but since you're American and you like huge food portions, fine, cool. The places that you went, they didn't like you and they treated you poorly. It's because you're American. So next time, go travel through Arkansas and Alabama instead of going to Europe. So that way you don't have to complain about the food and the portion sizes. Go to a fucking McDonald's then and order 5 Big Macs to keep you happy. Thanks, but I still like your podcast. Well, so not all negative. So not, a mixed bag.
I had a guy say that you completely misunderstood pinchos. Like it was like it's supposed to be after you have a big meal, but you just couldn't find any place to have a big meal. But I don't know. That was like the one note I got. But again, wasn't there.
People get really mad about it. Really mad. Okay. All right. Friend ruined fantasy football trip. Player comp, balding, pudgy Luke Ridenour. That's pretty honest. My group of high school friends have a fantasy football league dating 15 plus years. We finally all got together for a live draft for the first time in years. We rented a great house in the mountains for the weekend. One guy hired a private chef to prepare food one night and then do a comedy routine. Who's that guy?
That sucks. I listen to comedy podcasts and they're always like, yeah, I did this gig for a couple of dudes. They never go well. I was like, I hated it. They hated it. But dudes still book like small rooms for even like top comedians. They can't even handle it. You got a chef doing it.
You have to be in like a house of 7 guys. Well, I guess it's fantasy. It's 10 to 12.
Right.
Still.
Bad idea.
The chef made the food, told one joke, and left without cleaning, which he said he would do. Turns out a comment one Fred made to another in the early hours of the night, you know how guys could be making fun of one another is how we show love, offended the chef. So the joke wasn't even towards the chef. It was from one of the attendees to the other. The chef told us in an email the Monday morning after the weekend that after that comment, he could not get out of the house fast enough and he was sorry he didn't clean or do the show. Many in the friend group are now clamoring for the commenter to pay for the whole thing rather than everyone just paying their original share. The commenter refuses to do so. What should we do? Also, this was not PFT commenter. Okay, good to know he's in the clear. I don't know. You guys,
come on,
got a chef, comedian / to perform as one of the nights of entertainment. The chef thing I can get down with. Stand-up comedy following. Who's that good at cooking and comedy to even pull that off? First of all right. I don't want to get into what was said or the tiers of what could have been said. Is there something that he could have said that is so off base that he deserves to get hit with the bill for everything? Sure, but I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to say that, book something else in the future and all of you have to split it. Don't be like, you guys all know who each other are. You've been friends for, like you said, 15 plus years. Somebody fucked up making fun of somebody else, by the way, not even saying it to the chef. I don't know. I mean, obviously there are other dynamics that could be at play here that could make it far more. I'm not super interested in guessing at what that is, but I think all of you deserve to pay equally for this because you hired a chef / comedian.
Yeah, I think
as one of the nights.
I think different friends groups have like a line that shouldn't be crossed, and it definitely just varies with the group that you're in. Like your work friend group, the line's probably way closer to where you are right now than in your regular friend group. But everyone in that group, no one was like, "Oh, he clearly stepped over the line." They found out the next day. So the title of this was like "Friend is ruining fantasy football trip." I think the rest of you guys are ruining the trip. I think hate to bring a charges to the game moment up, but that's exactly what it is. Like, you guys didn't understand. You had someone, within the group, it would have been fine, but you decided to bring someone else into the situation, and it kind of, it's just one of those stories. But yeah, I feel bad for this guy because you guys are all on the same page about not wanting to pay. And the one guy who, was just being normal, as what you always do. It's like everything changed. You looked up and he's like, what the hell? I'm on the other team now. So I would stop this right now. This is just charge to the game. I feel bad for this guy.
I mostly agree with that, but it does seem like most of the guys think there was a line crossed, though, right? So, like, it's not just like, hey, it's normal dude shenanigans stuff. Like, something weird happened, I would guess, and that was a line stepping situation. So, because I agree with you.
Put
Like,
it into that bucket, though, like a million different things are running through my head right now. As if everybody else is probably listening to this right now. Okay, but what if it were this and then this and then this was, and then you just go, okay, actually, like, yeah, of course, there's outcomes here where you're like, well, fuck that guy. But
yeah,
the way he framed it, right? The way he framed it was like, this is how we razz each other. So, like, in our normal fashion, this guy said something to another. That's the way he framed it. He wasn't like, and then it got really quiet and we moved on. He was just like, yeah, it just happened in the normal flow of things. This is how it always goes.
Yeah. I think if this isn't like a friendship ender situation, then I agree with Kyle. Like, it's a charged up, like if it's a charged up to the game situation. Like, you kind of knew, because it's true. Like, when you go on bachelor parties, when you go and hang out with your friends, like, kind of like, hey, if I invite this other person that's not in the group, like, are they going to understand the jokes? Is it going to be kind of weird? And you don't want to do that. So you do know what you're getting into with your group of friends. And if after this, he's not excommunicated based on what he did, then yeah, I think I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate. Like, clearly something did happen, but I wonder, I don't know, if you're willing to still be friends with this guy, I feel like you guys just kind of have to own it.
And fantasy football groups can be the meanest version of a group there is, by the way. That's kind of what they bond around disrespect. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Next time, just make somebody sit in Arby's for 24 hours.
Take it.
I also think inviting a stranger to the guys' weekend, or it could be the girls' weekend, when it's the intimate people that have known each other a really long time, and then you go, hey, let's have a stranger stop by, make us dinner, and then do a comedy routine. I don't know. You guys drinking all day too before the guy even gets there, and then you're zinging him and everything, and then he's coming out being like, we're going to start with some tuna tartare.
Interesting that a comedian got offended, though. You don't see that too often. Usually they're like, what'd I say?
That's a funny word.
But he's a chef comedian, though. I don't know. Who knows? Like, it's like a hybrid 2-in-1
Sounds like
situation.
He takes one of those occupations more serious than the other. What does that say about you?
I don't know. Maybe he's awesome. Maybe Yelp reviews off the charts.
Yeah.
All right. Creepy or not? Did we already read that?
Is that a ruling? I'd give a ruling. What we got?
Yeah.
I got to preview that one.
The old copy and paste, throw it in Google, see if it's around.
Not a good sign. Not a good sign for the not creepy.
Blind?
Yeah, I think
go blind.
What's the worst that could happen?
Read a fake one. Long-time listener, don't have gym stats. I don't go to the gym. 3rd-degree black belt in Taekwondo and actively trained. Basketball comp is Steve Nash. I had long hair in high school as a point guard shooter, and everyone on my team said I played like Nash. A lot of probing the lane, kicking out to teammates. Didn't like shooting a lot, but high percentage, but mostly I'm not super tall and had long hair. Okay.
Fair.
By the way, Victoria, BC, home of one Steve Nash.
What's up?
That's an interesting fact.
Yeah, I went to this breakfast place. They had like jerseys of everybody around there. There was a little Nash area. Also some killer French toast. And she's like, make sure you pour the sauce all over it. I was like, what kind of sauce are we talking about? It's basically cake frosting. I'll tell you what, though, it tasted good, but it was, she's like, you're not going to use the rest of it. I'm like, it's fucking in 9 a.m. Cake frosting all over this shit. I got stuff to do today.
Can I go on a side too? You ever see like,
please,
how everyone's like kind of in on these like Ninja Creamy things, and now everyone's just like making ice cream for breakfast, and it's like normalized that we're just eating ice cream for breakfast.
What?
Is that you haven't seen this? Like everybody's like they use like
my algorithm
they
is
use
weird.
Like
I don't know.
I know my algorithm is strange.
A lot of farts in my algorithm. I'm not really seeing the.
Ironically enough, I did go through a big phase in my feed of like mountain bikers crashing into stuff. So like I totally understand. Like that guy just going full force into a tree, and you're like, is that guy alive? Like,
dudes getting hurt, kids getting hurt. Yeah, that's all in my thing.
Yeah, but
I don't like to watch those. I don't like watch the dudes getting hurt.
Oh, I don't either. Anytime. But like they just keep coming.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know how to stop it in the algorithm.
Got to ride it out.
Yeah.
But
sorry.
But no, there's like this thing now where like everybody just eats desserts for breakfast. It's like, oh, do you want to eat like you could eat cookie dough for breakfast, but it's like cottage cheese and whatever. Blah, blah. I'm like, is this the slope we want to go down? Like, can we just eat normal breakfast? Like, just make some eggs, man. It's got good protein. Maybe some Raisin Bran. What are we doing? Like making ice cream for breakfast and cookie dough. Anyway, I'm an old man.
No, that's fine. I love key lime pie so much. Like if it's really good, it's my favorite dessert. It's not even close. And I was in Houston for college game day, and there was this hotel we were staying in that had this incredible breakfast buffet. But when I'm doing game day and we're up that early, I'm probably eating at 7 and maybe it's 8. I don't know. Usually at the set no later than 2 hours before the start of the show. And I'm going through normal eggs, bacon, potatoes deal. And I see this incredible individual serving of key lime pies. And I went, this isn't going to be here later, is it? And I was like, I'm doing it. I don't care. I'm fucking doing it. And it was so early. And it was so good. But it just threw me off. Me up. Like, how do you do this? How do you do this? I can maybe if you just do it enough that you just
threw you off mentally, or you were just like, I don't feel right. I never understood how people like. I guess like overeating McDonald's in the morning, I could feel a little sluggish. But I'm not like Bill's always like, man, if I had this at 4:00, God, I'd be down for the count. Like I've never really like I can't even tell if coffee's working. I just do it because I like started doing it along. I don't know if I feel better after coffee, but I do it. Does go good well. Goes well with the smoke, but like I'm never like, wow, I'm ready to go because I've had my coffee. I don't know. Like I just don't feel effects of the stuff that I put in my body most of the time.
That's incredible. You should hold on to that forever. Because I feel like, younger me, I would not feel the effects of stuff. But now, if I had like a cookie in the morning, it's not just throws my day off.
But what? But what?
But it depends on what your pattern is. Like when you don't eat really good food, you don't notice anything because you're always eating bad food.
All right, saying Kyle, a nice way of dumpster eater.
Like here's a perfect example. Like when you think about lunch back at the ESPN,
walked right into that.
No, I would see guys getting like double cheeseburgers and a full plate of curly fries at noon, and it was a little different for me because I was about to do a radio show starting at 1. But I would look at it and think, if I had that right now before the show started, the show's just gonna suck. Like, it would throw me off. I just would feel different. I don't know. Maybe the show wouldn't. Maybe it'd be good because I don't know. I just
still thinking about the last 60 seconds, and I wish I'd never said anything. But
we should do a test of like where
Well, if you're a fucking slob, everything's gonna seem the same, isn't it? God damn it.
All right. So
there's an email here somewhere, right?
Yeah. Anyway, another question. Mid-30s, 5'9". I've always been in longer term relationships. Met my previous girlfriend either in school or via online dating. I went through a breakup a few months ago. I've been single since. I live in a neighborhood in LA that's pretty walkable. Usually take my dog for long walks around the neighborhood, either in the morning or late at night, sometimes both. I have a husky, so it's a relatively unique dog. Rarely see them when I'm out, at least when I'm out walking. This will be relevant. Last weekend, I randomly woke up earlier than usual, but didn't want to go back to sleep. So I decided to just do my morning walk around 7:30 instead of usually around 10. So I go on my walk at the stoplight. I meet a girl. She starts talking to me because she also has a husky. Oh my God. Anyhow, we're just standing there talking for 20 minutes. Feels like we're hitting it off. Turns out she actually used to live a few apartments down from me, but just moved to the valley, but still comes down to the neighborhood because she works out at a Barry's. There's a lot of information, man. There's one right in the center, a few blocks from where I live. I walk by it all the time. Funny thing is, I used to live right by where she currently lives in the valley. So that was funny. God, you guys had so many connections, so many misconnections. She mentions how she thinks she's seen me walking around a few times. So anyway, after about 20 minutes, she's like, oh shit, I'm late for my class. We exchange names and that's it. My walk continues. My question: knowing this girl has workout classes at Barry's on Saturday, Sunday morning, is it creepy of me if I adjust my walk schedule to take my walk earlier in the hopes that I'll run into her again and have more conversations? Like, would she think it's weird if this guy doesn't really know all of a sudden starts walking around that area and running into her? It's pretty much the route I always walk anyway. I've never really dated a girl outside of online dating or meeting them in school scenarios. So just randomly meeting a girl on the walk is kind of a foreign concept to me. Hey, guess what? People used to do it, man.
That's called the old way.
Yeah. People saw other people in person and then said hello. It's fucking crazy.
Boomers are going to be fired up about
before
that.
There was a swipe right, there was a hello.
Hey, there you go, Kyle. That'd be a good intro to the Netflix doc. Get to work on that.
Yeah.
She was cool, and I hope I run into her again and see her if I can chat with her more, maybe ask her out. But I'm just not sure if she think it's creepy if we ran into her again around the same time on a weekend again. Hope this makes sense. Wonder if any female listeners have any thoughts. We don't need anyone else's thoughts. Just go for the fucking walk.
Yeah.
Just go for a walk.
I don't think it's weird if you change the time you do your walk, but if you start walking past her house because you know exactly where it is. Like, it's not weird if you're like, all right, I'm going to start.
He's not asking that.
Right.
You know?
He basically was like, it's my normal walk. Like, just keep walking.
Can I
dude.
do it? Should I not do it?
What do you want me to say? Yeah.
Then do it.
I think I'm going to buy a treadmill. This is all too much.
Yeah. He never leaves his house again.
We're Amazon freshing everything. I'm not even going to take the chance.
Dudes have been adding a few extra steps along the way just to alter the path to romance.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, people have been doing this forever. Well, they used to, I guess. Yeah, none of this is creepy. I'm more worried that you think it's potentially creepy for you to just go, hey, I'm going to walk my dog on the same path of the place that I already live. Just adjust it to hopefully run into her again. I think that's normal. And if she's into you, it's even a little feather in your cap. You can tell that story at your wedding.
Totally.
Like, well, I never like getting up early. And everybody laughs.
Yeah, I mean, you might even like the way you feel with a 7 a.m. walk as opposed to 10.
This guy be ruling out coffee and desserts in the morning.
Are you sure he didn't say, is it crazy if I just start walking by the place where I know she has the class?
Quote,
that's what
Is it creepy of me if I adjust my walk schedule to take my walk earlier in the hopes that I'll run into her again and have more conversations? End question.
But he also said, like, I know where that Barry's is that she's talking about. Didn't he also say that?
Yeah, but he said it's pretty much. I mean, look, if you're walking down to a side alley and you have clothes on a drying line, if they even have those anywhere, well, obviously because I've been traveling around.
Maybe
the world,
Europe.
I notice it, but yeah, but Europe-based dryers. Yeah, dude, I think you're totally fine, and I want you to be less apprehensive about this. He didn't mention.
It's not like you're flying to like a new city in the hopes to meet this girl that you've never even met in real life that you've just seen on Instagram, which definitely happens, by the way. That's fucking creepy.
I thought, well, that's insane. That sounds like a good use of money. I don't know why. I mean, I thought he was going to say, like, should I go to Barry's?
Right.
Like, yeah, I just really need.
Well, don't be rubbernecking in the window of Barry's. That's the other thing. If you're like, is she in there today? Like, because you don't want to get caught doing that. But just do your normal thing. When I first moved here, there was like girls I'd see around, and I'm like, all right, well, I wonder if they're over here today. But like, you don't want to be like rubbernecking. I was just trying to get the lay of the land.
If they're over here today.
Well, I know they live right off Melrose, just like me. But whatever.
Was there a depth chart?
I was just trying to get my bearings, just trying to get the topographical map in my head, just know what's what.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right.
Good luck, dude.
Yeah, good luck. But I don't think you
Works
have
out.
anything to worry about at all. All right, we had another quick one here that I don't think is that big of a deal. Where did it go? Sorry, pick this up.
Word. Take this opportunity. Oh, that's better.
Oh, we already read that. Read that. God, maybe I didn't star it. Okay, yeah, there we go. Thanks for doing a longer one here. Might as well. Whatever.
We're
All
back.
right, pick it up here. 3, 2, and 1. Hey guys, a longtime passive listener of the pod via my fiance who listens religiously. I'm 5 foot, 105, and squat 100 pounds. My fiance's NBA comp is Tony Parker without a left hand. Okay. So, woman.
We're talking about a woman.
Yep. Here's the situation. 30 years old, live in New York City. I have an old friend who I know from sleepaway camp, which I stopped going to at 15. That's a good stat. We were just friendly, weren't in the same circle, didn't stay in touch after our camp days, throughout college, or the years since. We both happened to end up in New York City after college and actually started working at the same company as her. This is around 5 years ago, and she'd already been working there for a couple years prior. This is a massive PR agency with thousands of employees. We weren't in the same department, nor did we work on the same floor pre-COVID. That being said, when we both realized we're at the same company, we reconnected and interacted occasionally in this office as work acquaintances, mostly complaining about work and sharing advice about the company. These interactions were always initiated by her and just consisted of coffee breaks or quick walks around the office. Important to note, and not to tout my own horn, is it?
Mm.
I'd always
Maybe
believe
that's
it
just
was
a
2.
European, like how you spell armor differently if you want to.
Yeah, I don't think that's true either, but we'll
Doesn't
go
seem
with
like
it.
that's
There's
Tout
no
my
U
own
in
horn.
armor for Europeans? I think so.
I'm not talking about that or
Oh,
favorite.
sorry.
I'm just talking about the term, the phrase.
Okay.
No, who knows? Things evolve. I had a good circle of genuine friends within my department that I relied on. She seemingly didn't have other work friends, and I believe I was her main outlet to vent, complain, etc.
Bad sign.
After 4 years of working at the company, I left in 2023 while she still works there today. Since I left, my friend has been somewhat consistently reaching out to me to hang out. I'm talking every 1 to 2 months. She texts me asking to go for a walk, get a drink, get morning coffee before work. The first couple of times she asked, I engaged due to wanting to be nice and partly because I was interested in hearing gossip about my own company. Every time it's this exact same conversation. She only complains about her job. But recently, I've been taking longer and longer to respond to her texts, which typically end up being non-committal answers, only for her to follow up to continue pushing to set up a plan. She never gets the hint. I don't want to be a dick, but I just don't want to hang out with her. I have a good circle of friends, whereas she seems to rely on me as an outlet for her to continue to complain about her job. I have no interest in continuing to serve as this outlet. She also may not have any friends, which is where I think this is at. So I don't think it's just an outlet to complain. You said she has no friends at work. So, I mean, this is the struggle of power in any dynamic, whether it be a relationship or just friendship. If you have a ton of friends and you're like, I don't even really like this person all that much, and she has none, and you're cool, she's gonna be tough for her to let that go. It's gonna be a tough breakup. There's only so many times you give me the same simple advice, or I can give her the same simple advice. Get a new freaking job. It's worth reiterating. We weren't friends before working together. We're only kind of friendly during. I really thought our relationship would fizzle out once I left, as typical for an old work acquaintance. What should I do? How do I end this relationship? Please help. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty obvious, right? Like, she's not as cool as you, and she looks at. Oh, what? I mean, am I wrong?
No, yeah, you're not wrong. It's just blunt.
Basically, it's the friend version of how hot is she, right?
Kind of.
Yeah. It seems like that situation where there's a reason she's hitting you up because she's crazy. That's why she doesn't have friends, and that's why she keeps hitting you up because you're the one person that keeps giving her attention. So, kind of a bummer.
Yeah, look, it's pretty amazing when you think about like how often someone will hit you up, and then it'll break into this like I don't know. Bracket's not the right term here, but it just maybe bucket. I think it's the second time I've used it this episode, but
It's 2 buckets now.
yeah, just like, hey, I don't want to hang out.
I can't do that. I really can't do that.
I can't either. Yeah.
Fairly
You just
obvious.
got to kind of ghost her. Can't you just ghost her? Like, just respond to whenever out of every 3 texts. Like you said, you're delayed responding. Just cut a couple responses out. That saves you a couple months. She said she reaches out every couple months. I think you're not being harsh enough for her to get the hint, I think.
Yeah, you have to wean her off your texts. That's it. I'm
Wean her
dealing
off
with it right now.
the methadone.
Yeah.
Well, what do you got going on?
Well, it's even tougher because I see dudes at the bar and they're like, we should totally hang out. And somehow I got my number, and it's just sometimes it's odd hours text, and others it's like, we're doing this thing. You want to come? And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't think so. Sometimes I don't answer. Sometimes I do. I keep, I have to run into this person quite often, but I'm just not interested in pursuing anything outside of, hey, we're both at this bar at the same time. So it's a little bit harder, but I'm navigating it right now. I'm not answering every text, pretty much non-committal stuff. Maybe I'm busy, I'm working, I don't know. Luckily when the NBA season starts, it's a little easier because I'm like, dude, it's football and basketball. I really this is my only free time when I'm here. So like, I'll see you when I see it. But I'm working on that too. I think you don't want to say, I'm not interested, back off. It's just, maybe next time. And sometimes I don't get back to you.
Hey, look, I've been on the other side of it. You're like, hey, this person, how many times have I reached out?
And then you get it.
Asked, do you want to do something? And you go, oh my God. Am I?
Yeah.
I would love.
What's your text look like? Is it a lot of blue? Then, maybe take a step back.
God. Like this is happening to me. This is weird. But whatever we're talking about here is like, you don't care. You don't want to be her friend. You haven't presented. I mean, you could say you're in the same industry and maybe you don't want to turn it as, but you never even brought that up. So it seems like you're not even going to care that much anyway. I mean, I don't know if there's something you could do that's like, what could you do that's offensive but not terrible? A woman president? Oh my God, LOL. And then she might be so disappointed in you. A couple sleepaway camp buddies 15 years ago.
Thought I knew you. Yep.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, you're voting for him? Yeah. And then it's like, well, this is over. That's actually happening to a lot of people.
Right.
From what I've heard.
Yep. From what she
plays.
I was going to say you could try the new number thing, but if you both have iPhones, I think the jig is up pretty fast with that.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah. Couldn't you like delete her as a contact and then it resets her back to green?
I don't know. I'd look into that.
Then
then
it ends up she's really weird. You can be like, murder mystery.
Yeah.
I tracked you down. What happened? I look, what are you asking? You were asking, how do I handle someone I don't care about and want nothing to do with moving forward? And you're right. The constantly complaining about a job. I had a phase of a little while where I complained to my girlfriend about my job for way too long. I look back, I'm like, that wasn't fun. That's my fucking fault.
Yeah.
And she sat and she listened and she listened and she listened. And I did it for way too long. I regret my apologies to you retroactively. It just sucks. It sucks to hear the other person complain about their job all the time when they have nothing else to bring to the table. And you don't even want to hang out with this person. This isn't a friend that you're annoyed with, that you want to remain friends with. This is someone you don't want to be friends with that is annoying you.
Yeah, she's not going to hang out with this person. I think she's just choosing your own adventure about how not to hang out with them. And I think it's either keep the text going sparsely and, less and less. It sounds like she's not going to take the hint, or you just don't answer. That's it.
Today's life advice brought to you by State Farm. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can bundle with the personal price plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state. Okay, that'll do it for the pod today. Make sure you check out our YouTube page. We're going to load up with all sorts of special little items moving forward and gear that up. And thanks to Oregon. Thanks to Ceruti and Kyle, the Ryen Russillo podcast. Ringer spot.